got a great group to work through this story for us. Good morning to you all. Ken, I want to start with you, and you've got some new reporting this morning on kind of the timeline about how this all went down with the new U.S. Attorney, Lindsey Halligan.
Yeah, that's right, Willie. My colleagues Carol Lenig, Vaughn Hilliard, and I have learned that Lindsey Halligan, the newly installed U.S. attorney who was an associate secretary at the White House and is Donald Trump's former defense attorney and has never prosecuted a case, she brought this case to the grand jury by herself, we are told. She presented for a couple of hours yesterday afternoon without any help from other prosecutors in the office. At least they weren't presenting the evidence to that grand jury, and acknowledging that she got 12 grand jurors to go along with this case. That underscores, though, that she's going to have difficulty finding a prosecutor within that office, a real prosecutor who actually understands federal criminal procedure, to take up this case. Now, she could always hire someone from the outside. There are plenty of right-wing lawyers who would leap at the chance to prosecute this case, but people within the Justice Department, professionals who do this for a living, are balking. And in fact, James Comey's son-in-law, Troy Edwards, who is a senior lawyer in the National Security Division in that very office, the Eastern District of Virginia, resigned immediately when this indictment was announced. And we should explain to folks that what the charges are here, which is that James Comey is charged with lying to Congress and obstructing justice related to testimony that he gave at a Senate hearing 5 years ago. As you said, the statute of limitations was about to expire. And this was a hearing about the Trump-Russia investigation. But the testimony at issue was not about the Trump-Russia investigation. It was about whether James Comey had authorized his deputy, Andrew McCabe, at the time, to leak a story to the Wall Street Journal back in 2018 about investigations into the Clinton Foundation. There was a whole Inspector General investigation of this issue, and that investigation found that Andrew McCabe lacked candor, in other words, that he lied. But it also found that James Comey did not authorize that leak, that he was aware of it, McCabe told them about it, but he didn't authorize it, and that's the way Comey testified. Now, we don't know what new evidence, if any, has been unearthed, what they presented to the grand jury to convince 12 grand jurors to move this case along, but we're not aware of anything in the public record that bolsters the idea that Comey lied to Congress. And I got to say, so Lindsey Graham is on Fox News last night reacting to this, and he talked for 5 minutes about what he perceived Comey's sins were in the Trump-Russia investigation, which to me underscores this isn't really about what James Comey said in answer to that question. This is about people on the MAGA side wanting to punish him because they believe that he lied to the FISA court or did all these horrible things. And by the way, another prosecutor, a special counsel, John Durham, was appointed by Donald Trump. He looked into that whole issue thoroughly. He didn't charge James Comey or anyone else with these issues except for a low-level FBI lawyer. And so this is really a sop to the people on the MAGA side who cannot get over the fact that the Trump-Russia investigation was conducted, according to the Inspector General, fairly and properly, and was a thing that the FBI had to do at the time, guys.
Well, and you bring up John Durham. Poor John Durham, a man who, before crossing Donald Trump's path, actually was a respected prosecutor. He got involved in what Donald Trump himself would call a witch hunt, flew all over the world talking to witnesses, trying to find any evidence that James Comey or anybody else did anything untoward or illegal in the Russian investigation. And he found nothing. The few cases he brought, he ended in humiliating manner for him. It was an absolute a bomb of an investigation trying to investigate the investigators. And so Lindsey goes on, my God, Lindsey Graham goes on for 5 minutes talking about something that has nothing to do with this indictment. He doesn't talk about the fact that a Trump prosecutor said, no, I'm not going to bring this case. I'll quit before I bring this case. She couldn't get anybody to go in and help her yesterday try to get an indictment. But Barb McQuay, it's pretty simple. And I talk about this all the time. You know, there's so many people in Washington, D.C., and it's not just with the Trump administration. I've seen this for years. They get into the White House or they get into the administration and they think what's happening is going to last forever. I will not name names, but I have told people running White Houses. There, one instance where a president was at the height of his popularity, and I leaned over to one of his top aides and I said, you know, you're only renting this office. You know you're going to be gone in a blink of an eye. People come in here, they think that they're here forever. They aren't. And you have to be held accountable for everything you do in here. Never forget that. I've had that talk probably with 3-4 administrations through the years. And you get a sense that the prosecutors that are refusing to take part in this understand there are lawyers who did what Donald Trump wanted them to do against their better wisdom, against their legal training, against the code of ethics, against legal norms, and they're disbarred now. So I wonder if that's a lot of what was going on when you had Donald Trump's own prosecutor say, no, I'm out of here because I'm going to be held accountable either next year when the Democrats take over, or I'm going to be held accountable when a Democratic president's elected. I'm not going to bring a scam case because of Donald Trump's orders over Truth Social. I wonder if they already understand the consequences are coming legally in terms of disbarment or even something worse down the road.
Yes, I don't know what motivated them, but I will comment on Ken's reporting that it was Lindsey Halligan herself who took this case to the grand jury. That is extraordinary reporting because it just isn't done. She has been on the job for all of, 5 days? She has no experience practicing before a grand jury. Federal prosecutors get extensive training in grand jury practice, in the rules that apply to a grand jury, and the ways to present a case. The fact that she couldn't find a single assistant U.S. attorney in an office of well over 100 of them is very telling to me. It's also telling that she is the lone person to have signed that indictment. She could not find any career professional to do that. I served as U.S. attorney for almost 8 years, after 12 years as an assistant U.S. attorney. Do you know how many indictments I signed while I was U.S. attorney? 0, because I trusted my people to do it, and they trusted me after I'd reviewed the indictment that they could do the job. And so it tells me that she couldn't find any career professional to take this case to the grand jury. That's extraordinary, and it really does demonstrate the weakness of the case and, as you point out, the potential ethical lapses that are occurring here.